I joined a gay rugby team and it changed my life.
On this episode of the Gay Rugby Podcast, we're talking about our personal experiences joining a gay inclusive rugby team here in Los Angeles and traveling the world with the international gay rugby community. This is the Gay Rugby Podcast. Let's get ready to ruck. Hi, Ozzy.
Hello, Jack.
Episode 1.
Here we are. It's finally happening.
It's finally happening.
I feel like we've been talking about this, I want to say months, but I think it's years now.
It's been over a year.
Yeah.
So we are on a gay inclusive rugby team called the Los Angeles Rebellion Rugby Club. That's how we met.
Yep.
A couple years ago, I took over our social media, and it was a huge success. It's still a huge success, and
yeah, I mean, and it's not lost on anyone that Jack is the reason why we've been so successful. I mean, prior to Jack taking over that, I think our social media presence was mediocre at best, and so now I think we're, if not the top team, one of the top teams that is recognized within IGR. So that's pretty amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ozzy. Ozzy's been a big help all along the way.
So let's start with the basics. My name is Ozzy.
And I'm Jack.
I'm born and raised in LA.
And I was born in Boston.
And Jack and I met a few years ago playing rugby.
2017, to be exact.
Really? Cool.
Actually, that's not exact. It was 2018.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just know it's been a while.
Yep. I remember joining the team, not really knowing anything about rugby. You know, I was a drama kid in school.
Well,
I didn't
you're
really
a drama
play
kid now.
contact sports. And I never really thought I would like them. But having joined a gay rugby team, I am all about that contact, baby. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to get out your aggression and make friends.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you get to meet amazing people. Jack met me, you know? I met Jack. I mean, same for me. I mean, I used to play sports when I was a kid, and I absolutely hated it. And I think it's because there were sports that were chosen for me by my parents, and not necessarily something that I wanted to do. So when I joined rugby as an adult, it was the best thing that I ever could have done. It opened me up to different circles of friends, and here we are. Producing a podcast. That's amazing.
So, Ozzy, how did you find out about the Los Angeles Rebellion Rugby Club and the greater IGR, which is International Gay Rugby Community?
Well, I think, let's take it back. How did I even know that rugby existed? Because I'm born and raised in LA, and here rugby is not that popular. I don't think rugby is popular in most of the states. And so I remember it was an episode of Friends when Ross was talking about rugby, not to age myself, but those of you that are familiar with Friends, you guys will figure it out quickly. And so anyway, so I Googled like, what is rugby? And so that's what sparked that interest in rugby. And subsequently, that's how I found the Rebellion.
So you were watching for the thirst traps at first?
No, I was more genuinely curious about the sport itself. And I thought it was an aggressive sport. I didn't think that I would do it, but why not? You live once, right? And so anyway, so I Googled teams in my area, and I remember looking at a bunch of straight heterosexual teams that weren't necessarily catering to the LGBTQ plus community. But then somehow I stumbled across the Los Angeles Rebellion, and I knew like that's the team I want to go check out, and that's how I found the Rebellion.
Very cool. I think it's so interesting that you were actually just looking for rugby as a sport in general. You weren't even searching for this community that we found.
Yeah, that's true.
And that was just an added bonus.
It was
very just macho of you.
Well, I did. I mean, in my defense, I did want to play a sport. I just wasn't sure which one I wanted to play. So I landed on rugby.
The hardest one.
I like challenges.
Okay, cut to pictures of all of Ozzy's bruises and black eyes from the past 5 years.
What can I say?
Very cool. Do you want to ask me how?
Yeah.
How about you, Jack?
No one cares about you, Jack.
Well, you'd think that it's just like the natural course of the conversation is now you would ask me how I joined the team, but we can just talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Perfect. All right. So my weekend plans are. No, Jack. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you found the rebellion? And actually, how did you find rugby, number one, and then how did you find the rebellion?
I don't know how I knew that gay rugby was a thing. I think maybe I was on Instagram or on Google, or maybe I watched some sort of movie. But I was looking for gay rugby teams.
Can we? Sorry, could go back. What kind of movie were you watching?
You know, YouTube and all those websites, new media. Right. And you know, I kind of needed a little bit of a slap in the face at the time. I had just broken up with my long distance boyfriend, and I wanted to prove a point. So I joined a gay rugby team here in LA. What I did was I Googled it. I looked up gay rugby. I found the team's website. On the website, they listed when they practiced and where. And I showed up. I didn't email anyone. I didn't reach out. But yeah, I just showed up. I remember we have a teammate. He's a prop, which we'll get into later. He was a bit more of a prop at the time, but I just remember shaking his hand, and his hand was like so big and callous. And I was like, I'm excited.
You're like, I'm going to get murdered.
So I went to one practice, and then there was a match on Saturday. So I went to the match, I watched, and I was like, oh, wow, this is like a real sport. Yeah. Like, this is intense. And then we had a B-side match, which basically means that there was a bunch of extra players and we wanted to play more rugby. And so they had a spot for me. I remember my buddy was like, yeah, just play. It's fine. You'll figure it out.
Sink or swim.
No idea what I was doing. They passed me the ball. I catch it and I just look around, and then all of a sudden I just get tackled to the ground. Wind knocked out of me. I remember the first couple weeks where I was training and playing matches, I was so sore. I could hardly walk.
Dude, same. Those are my first memories of rugby. Like, I remember walking down the stairs because I needed to walk my dog and just in pain. Like, everything
Ozzy has like 3 stairs at his house, by the way. I know you're all imagining like a big staircase. It's like 3 stairs at your house.
So let me clarify. I was talking about the steps to go to the back of the yard behind my house. So there's a lot of steps there. But yeah, my first day at practice, I went with one of my friends, and we're both like, we're going to do this. We're going to be great. Yeah.
I have never met this guy, by the way.
No, you didn't. You didn't meet him.
Yeah.
And
Didn't
so
work out the way
that was his first and last day at practice. I remember we went on a Tuesday, and
so
then
you didn't like it.
Yeah, I called him Thursday. Hey, practice is again today. You want to go? He said, thanks, no thanks. It's not for me. And I think it's because
it's not for everybody.
Yeah, we were doing contact that night.
Okay.
And so we're like, coach asked, like, are you okay with physical contact? You want to try it? And I was like, yeah, like sink or swim, right?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, just throw me in. I'll practice. I don't care. And I think that was not his calling, but for some reason I liked it, and I came back for a second beating on that Thursday.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did.
Me too. And I'm glad that I stuck with it because.
Did you? Sorry,
not
Ozzy
lately.
recently retired.
Yeah. The boots I hung up the boots. Too many injuries, but I hung in there for a few years. It was definitely worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story. I know that a lot of our listeners probably, again, this is our first episode, but I'm hoping some people will listen. And especially some people in the international gay rugby community probably have similar stories. So we definitely want to hear them. So if you've joined a rugby club or
thinking about joining a
rugby club, have any questions, if you're looking for teams in your area, definitely hit us up in the comments. shoot us an email, and we'd love to connect with y'all. I think that'd be really cool.
That'd be awesome.
But I just wanted to speak to how it's kind of transformed my life, and I know yours.
Yep.
We practice twice a week. We have games and matches almost every Saturday. And then outside of that, it's really just become like my core friend group. I'm definitely an introverted extrovert. It's hard to get me out of the house, but when I'm out of the house,
He's out of the house.
I'm out of the house.
Cartwheels and all.
And so it's really beneficial for me to have kind of like a built-in friend group and structure to my socializing. I know that every Monday, every Wednesday, I'm going to practice. We're going for drinks after. And then we do stuff like we've had karaoke parties and birthdays and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, with everything that comes with like new friend circles, right? But your team does really become like a second family because you spend a lot of time with them during the week, on weekends.
And you're not just spending time with them. I mean, you are fighting for your life. You're going to war with some of these guys. People are getting hurt. You're lifting them into the air. So you're getting really close with a group of people who I normally probably would have not met or been friends with. And there's a really great variety of people on our team, and the friendships are incredible.
And the common thread is obviously it's rugby, right? The sport of rugby. And so I also want to quickly mention, as you alluded to, that it's different people, different experiences, different individuals that normally you probably wouldn't socialize with outside of rugby. But it is all inclusive, right? So we do have straight players on the team, and none of that obviously matters. We're all there to play a sport, and the goal at the end of the day is to get that W. And so you're counting on your teammates to protect you, and you're protecting them. And I think that's why we really bond, because we see each other in varying situations, and it's great.
And I think the inclusivity, it doesn't just speak to sexuality. I would say probably more than half of the players on our team and other teams in the IGR community that I've spoken to, most of their players have never played rugby before. And so what I love about it is that it's so welcoming, not just to different sexual orientations and gender identities, but also to like playing level.
Yeah.
You know, there's people who have never even thrown a ball on it. Okay, that's a little dramatic, but
maybe,
I was one of them. Of them. Yeah. And you might be better at sports than you think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with obviously you're training, right? Like practice makes perfect. And so you're going to continue to get better. But if you don't start, you're not going to know. And so the sooner you start, the sooner you get better.
Yeah. And I think for me, and I know a lot of other people have had this experience, in high school and elementary school, there was a lot of like toxic masculinity in sports, a lot of like, that's so gay, and just putting people down. Personally, I came out of the closet when I was 13. I had done wrestling up until then, but once I came out of the closet, I didn't really feel comfortable being on a wrestling team.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just so cool that there's this huge international community of really intense rugby players and contact sports enthusiasts, and it's just so cool. I'm so happy that I found it.
Another thing that I really like about rugby is that I can travel anywhere in the States, internationally, really. And if I'm, whatever city I'm in, for example, I was in New York not too long ago, I messaged one of the New York teams, and they came out.
Gotham, right?
Yeah, it wasn't Gotham.
There's another.
Actually, there is, but I was actually in Jersey, not New York. So let me.
He's such a liar.
No, I'm not lying.
Liar, fans on fire.
It was in Jersey. I was there for Jersey Pride, actually.
How was Jersey
That was so
Pride?
random. I know. That was a few years ago, and I wasn't there for that. I was there to visit my friend, but it happened to be Jersey Pride that weekend.
Okay.
So we took the train to Jersey, and I was wearing a Bingham t-shirt, and some guy from across the bar looks at me. He's just like And I'm like, I have no idea what he's doing. And then he runs over. He's like, you play rugby? And I was like, yeah, I play rugby. He's like, oh, and I can't remember what team he played for, but he recognized the Bingham shirt. And so we went and had beers at the bar. Which,
That's the great thing about rugby.
Yeah.
Brings
so
people
awesome.
together, all walks of life, all over the world. I mean, if you are traveling, you meet another rugby player, you know you're going to have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, you can travel internationally even, and you hit them up and they're like ready to go. There's one thing about rugby players. What do we like to do? Drink. Actually, maybe that's just me. But no, I think most rugby players
A lot
like
of
to
rugby
drink.
players drink. There's definitely a heavy drinking culture that's part of some rugby clubs and teams and communities. But can we just go back a second? You said you were wearing your Bingham Cup shirt, and I feel like we should give people a little context as to what the Bingham Cup is.
Sure. Do you want to tell the folks?
Yeah,
Go
sure.
for it.
So the Bingham Cup is a huge international gay rugby tournament that happens every 2 years all around the world. Past locations have included Australia, Rome, Italy, Ottawa, Canada.
Amsterdam, Netherlands.
Amsterdam. That's the one. I joined the team right after everyone got back from Amsterdam, and the stories that they had were just pretty out there, pretty wild. And
it's
I was
Amsterdam.
so excited to go. Personally, I've been to the Bingham Cup in Ottawa in Canada, and then this past May in Rome, Italy, and I just love it. It is such a cool way for rugby and inclusivity to be celebrated. You don't realize how big the community is until you go to one of these tournaments.
Yeah, and it's huge. And every other year, it gets even bigger.
Even bigger.
To the point where, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think the next city to host it actually is going to be in Australia again, right?
It is going to be Brisbane, Australia. Yes.
So that'll be their second time hosting, I believe.
I think it was in Sydney. At least I saw pictures of our team in front
I was
of
referring
the
to
Opera House.
Australia.
Australia's a big place.
Yeah.
That's like saying the United States is hosting.
Well, I did say Australia.
Anyway, I'm super pumped to go to Brisbane next year. And then there's also regional tournaments. So we have Rucktacular, which is the West Coast yearly tournament.
Which also, by the way, continues to grow. I feel like it gets bigger.
Bigger every year.
Every time, yeah.
It's a gay inclusive rugby tournament. This past year it was in San Francisco. It rotates between San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, but attending teams include Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, and then Phoenix joined recently.
Oh, and Canada's team, Vancouver.
Yes. I'm just giving you a look because I already said Vancouver.
Oh, you did.
Roll the tape.
Attending teams include Vancouver.
I don't listen to half the things he says.
That's okay. That is the Rucktacular tournament. It's more local. It's usually just 2 days. Actually, it's just 1 day.
It's one day of games.
1 day of games, matches.
But it's actually like a whole weekend thing because teams usually roll in during the week. So Friday we'll have like a social event where we'll go out, like
go to a bar.
Go to bar, do stuff. Saturday it's a bunch of rugby, and then there's the drink up after, and then there's like the closing party that night, and then Sunday whoever survives.
The Survivors Brunch
Usually, and then there's Noram Cup too,
which is coming up this May. I'm not sure when this podcast will be released, but May 2025 in Boston, Massachusetts.
And,
there will be a inclusive rugby tournament called the Noram Cup, which is
North American
under
Cup.
the umbrella of Bingham, but it's the regional North America tournament. Yeah. So super excited for that as well. But do you feel like joining an inclusive rugby team has kind of given you like a sense of belonging and a little bit of a confidence boost? I don't know. I was like very much a hermit before I joined the team. Didn't really have a friend group in LA. I mostly just stayed home on the weekends. and just my confidence, talking to people, making new friends, and just the sense of belonging is like really strong.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I mentioned before, I played sports when I was younger, and I think part of the reason that I didn't stick with the sports that I played was because I didn't feel like necessarily comfortable in those spaces.
Yeah.
And so I think joining the Rebellion gave me it made me feel better about myself, right? It made me feel more confident in what I was doing. And there wasn't this feeling of like, oh, are they going to judge me because I'm gay, or are they going to look at me different because I'm not like them? So it definitely did make a difference psychologically, at least. And I think that also made a difference physically, right? Because I'm doing more things more confidently.
Yeah.
And so that was great. I mean, I think that really made a difference for me compared to.
Yeah, same. And I think one thing that struck me was like, I know we talk a lot about like toxic masculinity in sports, and especially growing up. But I still feel like, I don't want to call it toxic masculinity, but there is that like macho energy of just like camaraderie with a group of sports players.
Yeah, I mean, rugby's been around for a very long time. And so rugby wasn't always this inclusive, just like most other things weren't, if we're being honest. So I think but I think that the rugby community is one of the one that's the most open-minded, in my opinion. And so I think we're continuing to shake off a lot of those machista cultural, behaviors and traditions.
Reshape them.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely have a lot more self-awareness. But I think we have a lot more self-awareness than a lot of other sports do. So that's a positive.
Yeah. So I think this is a good moment to talk about the history of LGBTQ plus rugby teams.
Yes.
Obviously, LGBTQ plus people have been around forever.
We just haven't been as visible, obviously.
Yes.
Steelers come to mind?
They do. I wrote a little brief summary. We did some research online, and we want to invite members of these clubs, and especially if you were a founding member, we'd love to hear from you, maybe even interview you. But for now, I've got like a little brief summary, so I'll just read that. And then hopefully on a later episode, we can actually get some of the trailblazers into the studio to do an interview.
That'd be awesome.
The history of gay rugby is deeply tied to the broader movement for LGBTQ plus inclusion in sports. The first openly gay rugby team, the King's Cross Steelers, was founded in London in 1995.
That was a long time ago.
It was created to provide a welcoming space for LGBTQ plus players who often felt excluded or uncomfortable in mainstream rugby environments. Following the success of the Steelers, other gay rugby clubs began forming. Across the Atlantic, the first North American gay rugby team, the San Francisco Fog, was founded in 2000. The Fog helped to popularize inclusive rugby in the U.S., and in 2001, they played an expedition match against the King's Cross Steelers. Oh, this is cool.
So,
in 2002, the International Gay Rugby Association and Board, formerly known as IGR, was established to support and grow the inclusive rugby movement. IGR helped to organize the Bingham Cup, a biennial international gay rugby tournament named in honor of Mark Bingham, a gay rugby player, and 9/11 hero who was instrumental in the forming of the San Francisco Fog. The first Bingham Cup was held in 2002 in San Francisco and has since grown into the largest amateur rugby tournament in the world. And that's not just inclusive rugby tournament. That is the
rugby tournament.
The largest amateur rugby tournament in the world. Not just for gay people, not just for people in the LGBTQ plus community, but it is one of the biggest rugby tournaments in the world. I really want to hammer down on that.
Yeah, and it's not just men; it's women, it's trans athletes, it's non-binary athletes. So it really is open to everyone and anyone that wants to play.
Yeah. Today, there are over 100 inclusive rugby clubs across multiple continents.
Here.
Isn't that cool?
That is amazing. And we're part of that community.
We are part of that community. And we definitely want to shed some light on it and some insights and help that community grow and thrive. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's Gay Rugby Podcast. This is our first episode, so I hope we did okay.
Yeah. And I just want to make a quick note. Earlier when you were going down the history of the LGBTQ plus inclusive rugby teams, I did not hear the Los Angeles Rebellion that was established in 2001. So,
cool.
I think maybe we can get one or two of those founders to come in and talk to us about it.
That would be awesome. That'd be super cool. This has been a lot of fun.
It's been awesome.
Episode number 1.
Woohoo!
We did it.
We did it.
So thank you all so much for tuning in. We're super excited to build and support the inclusive rugby community around the world.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your questions. So make sure that you like and subscribe and share this video with a friend. You can follow us at Gay Rugby Podcast on all social media platforms. And until next time,
don't just play the sport. Change it.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Gay Rugby Podcast. If you liked this video, do us a favor and subscribe. Hit that bell to change your preferences to notify all, and that way you'll get a notification every time a new episode comes out, which is going to be every Monday. So share this video with a friend, like, comment, and we appreciate the support. We'll catch you on the rugby pitch. See ya.